everyone, and welcome to another episode of N15 with Rinchin, a show where top experts share their most practical advice in 15 minutes. My name is Rinchin, and I'm going to be the host. Our guest for today is Richard Samela. Richard is a seasoned product management leader with over a decade of experience of putting customer needs at the center of building products. From balancing the needs of client and users to building trust through empathetic communication, learning insights on aligning problem solving, prioritizing needs, and supporting the team, Richard has a rich experience in managing product and the product teams. In today's episode, we will be talking about how product managers can focus on delivering outcomes by avoiding some of the major pitfalls. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello, Richard, and thank you so much for joining in 15 with Rinchin.
Thank you for having me, Rinchin. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine, Richard. So today we want to talk about an important aspect of product management, which is customer centricity. A lot of people keep product as the heart of product management. However, like you mentioned, it is the center of everything is the customer. So would you like to elaborate a bit more on that?
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yes, everyone loves products. Everyone loves fancy things to either work on or use, and we want to build those things, but they have to add value for the customer. They have to be engaging for the customer, and they have to allow the customer to achieve the objectives they want to achieve. Otherwise, it's going to sit on a shelf. It's never going to get opened if it's digital. It very quickly loses its luster and becomes useless. So center everything around the customer, build it so that it brings joy to the customer and satisfies their needs. And then you're going to have something that people use consistently and keep coming back for.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've noticed is that in most product management teams is that all the product managers start with that intention that we want to bring value to the customer. But as the journey progresses around building that product, a lot of it becomes about, I think this is what the product should be like. And oh, this is what the business thinks it should be, right? What has been your experience around that?
But it absolutely happens, right? You get into your roadmap meeting, you have everything all planned out. Next thing you know, the senior executives say, that's great, but I spoke to a customer and they want this. Or, my wife really thinks we should be doing this instead of that. And you get to where it's like the hippo, the highest paid person in the room, is the one driving decisions. It's up to the product manager to be the one who pushes back. And that's a challenge for many product people, right? How do you push back and not fear losing your job? But you have to.
Well, the very logical next question is, have you ever encountered that and how you have managed those conversations?
Yes, absolutely have encountered that. I was at a place where the product was crashing almost weekly, and we weren't struggled to get out our daily deliverables to our clients. Right? So while we had a nice roadmap of things we needed to work on, right, me as the product manager, understanding the importance of retention and reputation for moving forward, had to figure out what is the cost of identifying what the problem is that's causing it to crash and fix it, or at least propose that we spend the next quarter fixing this instead of the planned items on the roadmap. And what it comes down to is you've got to be able to make that case. If we don't do this, this is what we stand to lose versus staying on course, right? Which one do you want? Do you want to lose customers going forward, or do you want to retain customers, create stability in the platform, and then have the room for growth? Right? So sometimes what we had to do is figure out what is the trade-off. We could continue down the path and release new features in our roadmap, right, and have shiny new things for the salespeople to talk about, but we can't grow anymore because our platform is continually crashing. Or we can pause new feature development, stabilize the platform, satisfy our current customer needs,
Yeah.
and then get back to growing the platform. So this is the case that we have to make sometimes as product managers to our stakeholders to get that buy-in, because everyone wants the shiny new features. Nobody wants to do the boring work, that stability work, right? Getting rid of some of that technical debt. But it's crucial to get that in place to grow.
That's true. But one of the things that I've noticed is that for the existing features and for the existing infrastructure, if there's a technical debt, that is still understood by, say, the hippo in the room. But what happens is that when it comes to creating the new features, I see that struggle there sometimes. There's a lot of window dressing of the product that everybody wants to do, and prioritizing the MVP becomes a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So, what has been your experience around that?
It really comes down to, right, if you're building an MVP and you don't want something that someone's going to push for you to release quickly because they think
Mhm.
it's ready, keep it visually bare bones, right? Remove most of the UI, build
Yeah.
all of the functionality in the background, get that functionality working smoothly. Once you have that put in place, now put that window dressing on and release the MVP that you're looking for. What people mistake a lot of times is, right, the first thing they show is the
Yeah.
visual aspects, because that's what gets stakeholders excited. But once stakeholders see those visual aspects, they don't care what you've done in the background to get it going. They get excited and they want to release it. So
Yeah.
get it functionally working and then you make it pretty.
That's a very good tip, especially for product owners who've just started their journey or are, in the mid journey at the moment. What I've also noticed is that sometimes what happens is that there are multiple product owners in an organization. And at that time, it becomes a competition for resourcing. You have several resources, and everybody wants to get their area of product as a preference and get it done faster. It's obviously to do with their own career growth, their aspirations, and it's also about that visibility. So, what would be your tips to navigate these situations at work so that the customer still remains at the center of all of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I always say a product manager should do is don't develop features, solve problems. And what that then allows is when you're prioritizing across other product managers or fighting for resources with other product managers, it's no longer which shiny feature we want to build. It's what is the biggest problem our customers are having and which product manager is working to solve that biggest problem. That makes it a much easier case for prioritizing accordingly, because it's now customer focused priority versus product manager focused priority.
Absolutely. That brings me to another question. And Richard, you have been in this arena of product management for so long, agility and product management. What has been your experience in the world of agile when it comes to a product that brings value? Because what I've noticed is that in a lot of organizations, what ends up happening is that it becomes a feature factory just in the name of agility and backlogs. You just want to somehow get in some features in there, and again, that customer centricity is lost somewhere. It's just about the more features we deliver, the more value possibly we bring in. But to your point,
Right.
it's all about solving a problem. So what has been your experience so far around that?
So that's where, right, naming everything you want to work on about the problem you're working to solve really helps, right, get rid of that feature factory creep and feeling, because you're not releasing things for the sake of releasing things.
Yeah.
You're releasing things that solve problems for customers. The other thing, right, I don't talk about value, which I know, right, Agile is all about delivering value faster, right?
Mhm.
What I say is replace the word value with outcome. What outcome are you delivering faster?
Right.
When you talk about value, you ask everyone in the room what the value of this is. They're all going to have a different answer. You
Absolutely.
ask them what the outcome's going to be. It's all going to be the same thing because they're all working towards that outcome.
Value could mean different things to different people in the room. Very good takeaway for everyone who's watching again. This is another tip for you to take back and implement. I had a question on a slightly different tangent also, Richard. So, whenever somebody wants to join product management, there's this fanciness around this world that, oh, it's product management. I'm going to just make great products. To any beginner, to their mind comes Apple, to their mind comes brand like Google. If it is in the tangible items, I would say AirPods or anything that is new and innovative. But there are certain aspects of this job as well which are boring but are important. In your experience, what are those things that also should be considered by product managers?
So the biggest thing I would say, right, you got to focus on the full life cycle of the product, right? Everything from its concept all the way through the end of life. Because whether it's physical or it's digital, things go away. Hardware deprecates. Software, as you roll out new things, you have to be prepared to roll other things back that are no longer adding or solving the current need for the customers, right? And nobody wants to think about that part of killing off a product or ending some functionality in a product. But it's crucial to do so because you don't want something that becomes so big that you can't maintain it anymore.
Yeah. And those reviews, you're right, are essential. And I feel like it usually gets to a point where, oh, now we are reaching end of life of this. So now it's all very reactive. So how can a product manager better plan for especially for the end of life of product. Now that we are in this AI world, things are evolving faster than it has been ever in the history. So what is the best way to review it and what should be the cadence I would say and what should be the things in mind while doing that?
So, as you're understanding the current problems your customers are facing and thinking of what, once we solve this problem, what's coming up next, you also need to look back and say, now that we've solved these current issues and they are no longer concerns for the customers, what then do we have to pull back on? You want to be able to right size things. If you just keep adding on and on and on, you end up with technical debt, spaghetti code, whatever, and it's just makes it harder to get anything done.
Do you also feel that somewhere technical debt becomes an excluded part of the product management over the course of the product journey?
So I do, right? A product manager should always be looking forward, not backwards. And right, sometimes it's the operations team who's pointing out the problems.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the engineers who are pointing out the problems. And once they get pointed out enough and you understand that it's actually impacting customers now, that's when you have to figure out what is that cost of leaving it alone versus cost of fixing it.
Yeah. And should that be the responsibility of product owner?
Figuring out the cost, absolutely.
Okay.
Right? They may not notice it's a problem until it's
Mm.
brought to their attention, but they should be the one figuring out the cost.
It's interesting. What are the tactical learnings that you've had over the course of your journey as a product manager that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Active listening, right? You need to listen to your customers, not to respond or answer, but to understand the outcome they need to achieve, right? They're going to talk about their wants.
Hmm.
You need to understand the outcome more than the wants. When it comes to your stakeholders, know your audience. When you're talking to the executives, don't use technical terms, don't use jargon. Talk about dollars, talk about time, talk about customers. When you're working with your engineers listen to the technical aspects, understand it, and take their advice. More often than not, they actually know the best way to accomplish something, and you want to listen to that so that you're not telling them what to do. You're telling them what problem to solve, and they're making the decisions on what to do.
I love that last part that you mentioned about don't tell teams what to do, but then tell them what problem to solve. I think that is one of the gaps that a lot of product managers are still bridging with the rest of the teams. And I feel that is the point where a lot of disconnect happens.
Yes.
Once product versus everything.
Yes. I once unfortunately had a manager who told me, when you're in a meeting, if you're not the one doing the talking, you're not leading the meeting. And my experience is if you want to lead the meeting, you need to be the one doing the listening and
Absolutely.
asking the questions.
I feel that too. I think asking the right questions is more important than hogging the entire discussion.
Yes,
But that's another good takeaway for the product owners. Even in their presentations, this could be one of the things that spend time.
definitely.
Awesome. Richard, thank you so much for these amazing takeaways. A couple of things that resonated the most were one, customer is at the center of everything. Ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? Always listen, but not to respond or react, but to really understand the problem. And don't tell people what to do rather than tell them what problem we are trying to solve. And yeah, in the meetings, you don't have to be the one who's always talking for you to lead the team. Thank you so much for these amazing takeaways, Richard. I truly appreciate your presence on In 15 with Rinchin. I think this is going to be a very valuable session, not just for the product managers, but everybody who's trying to innovate, who's in that technology innovation world. I think these are some great takeaways for them. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you.